Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather. Thanks for logging on to our YouTube page here today and checking our video out. We have what could be potentially a major winter storm brewing for next week that we want to talk about and sort of hone most of our time in on today. We have a little bit of snow potentially, but it looks like more rain at this point coming for the weekend. This doesn't look like a big system. What looks like behind that could potentially be a big system. Today's video update brought to you again by High Voltage Mobile DJ Services. You can give Nathan a call at the number here on your screen, 630-9465, or visit him on the web at djhighvoltage.com. They have some great services that they can offer you at very reasonable prices. So check them out. Tell them Southern Indiana Weather sent you. And thanks again for them for sponsoring us. All right, what you're looking at here is our current satellite image. And let me just highlight an area of interest. Here we are. And maybe it's hard to see here with the little white lines, but this is the outline of Alaska right here. I'm a terrible drawer, I always has, but here's Alaska right here. Here's the coastline. What I want you to see in particular is this storm right here. And you can kind of see this little comma shape. And boy, that's terrible drawing, I know, but just focus on this particular storm right here, folks. That is what's going to be our potential weather maker for next week. Now, Facebook is all abuzz today over potential accumulations with this bad boy. I know I've posted some snowfall accumulation maps as well. That's not meant to scare. That's just meant to prepare you for what could happen. Whenever I post those maps, that's not an official forecast of mine. I'm not saying we're going to get a mega snowstorm as an absolute guarantee. What I am wanting you to know is, hey, there's a heads up. There's what could be brewing a pretty powerful winter storm coming up for us later next week. I think it's wise to sort of give those things days in advance, because something like this, as you're going to be able to see as I go through the data, this could have the potential to shut us down for days. This one looks pretty big. But for right now, it's going to take a little while to get there, all right? So here we are out in the Alaska coast. If I just sort of put it in here into our mapping program, you can see the leading edge of that. My satellite view, as far as I can get in this program, only goes to here, which is why I showed you that there. But the storm is located up about here, and it's going to take several days to get there, actually, and it's going to take a path. And the storm's right about in here, and what we're going to find in the models is it's sort of going to take a nosedive with the jet stream down like this, kind of come in across California, come across here into Texas where a surface low will develop, and then it's going to move up somewhere like this through the Ohio Valley. Now, the exact track of where this thing goes is yet to be determined, and how that surface low that develops off of this wave that's going to move in is ultimately going to determine what kind of precipitation we get, all right? You know the drill. We've been through these many times before. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look. What I want to do is just work through the different three major models that we have. Excuse me. I'm going to take a look at the GFS and the Euro and the Canadian, just to kind of give you a comprehensive idea as to what everybody's saying, and then we'll just sort of play some thoughts in at the end. Here's the way the GFS places it, and first of all, let's just talk about our system for Friday. GFS wants to put us in a danger zone with a little bit of possibly some freezing rain. Excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold here. That time of the year. Possibly a little bit of freezing rain on Friday. I'm not overly aggressive with this. Really, I think it's going to warm up fairly nicely and give us mostly a rain event. There's a possibility that it could be snow for some of us, but either way, this does not look like a huge event for Friday. And then, as you notice, this low very quickly moves in and brings us all over to a rain event for Southern Indiana weather, for the Southern Indiana weather coverage area, all right? Behind this system, the GFS paints maybe a little bit of frozen precipitation on the way behind it. By the time this leaves, though, I think most of that's going to be dried up. So this is just indicating of precipitation type. But with most of the moisture already gone, I don't think you're going to have to worry about that ending on Saturday. At this point, we'll review that data as it gets closer. But right now, regardless, this just does not look like a major system for us, all right? But what's brewing next week does. And here you can see that low developing. The jet stream cuts in down here. Watch this low develop over Texas and then start to push our way. As it does so, initially, here we are at 1 a.m. on Tuesday morning. By the time you reach 7 a.m., it's indicating that we could even have some freezing rain on the GFS pushing into our area, mixing in with some light snow. But then it's going to go sort of an all-rain event for us as this moves closer. Then heavy snow behind this. And that's a similar pattern to what we've seen before. If you remember the big snowstorm that we had in December, this has sort of a similar look and feel to that one, all right? Where we started off with sort of a rain event, it went to freezing rain, and then we had some snow all behind that. It's kind of a similar idea, I believe, to what we have with this one. GFS does not bring us overly impressive snow totals with this. Still clobbers us with a little bit of snow with it, but we're talking only maybe 3 to 5 inches in here. It restricts the heavier snows up to northern Indiana. Now, I will say this, the GFS is an outlier at this point. Let me show you what the European model does, and then we'll take a look at the Canadian as well. European model, remember this first blue line, the 540 thickness line, typical rain-snow changeover line. So we're kind of on the border zone right here as we go into the overnight hours. This is actually Tuesday night. The European model wants to maybe take a little bit longer with the rain for us. We'll have to see how that pans out. But then very quickly you notice heavy precipitation with this, and the blue lines are all behind us by this point. So this would give us a very aggressively heavy snowfall. It would be a rain setup, maybe transitioning over to some sleet and freezing rain, and then to heavy snow with this type of a setup. And you can see it just that heavy precipitation lingers over us for a good little while. Snow totals with this one, with the Euro, are absolutely off the charts impressive. We're talking 23, 24 inches. Folks, if this verifies, this is a snowstorm this is the type of snowstorm we have not seen around here since 2004. If you remember the few days before Christmas of 2004, we had a very big snowstorm around here in the area. In fact, I remember it well. Part of my roof collapsed on my house. It was not a fun time for me during that particular snowstorm. It was a very wet, heavy snow, and we just got buried with it. Well, the European model is painting that kind of a snowstorm for us. So take this with a grain of salt. As I said yesterday, these model numbers, first of all, the snow totals are going to vary back and forth by model run, and the track of this low is going to determine everything, and it's going to vary by model run. Here's what the current run of the model is saying from this morning, but one run earlier, I have to back it out into a more regional view because it took the accumulating snow down towards Tennessee. So the models have a lot to work out, Liv. Don't be expecting this to stay on a consistent track for the next few days. Keep in mind that it's probably going to be more towards Sunday before we get this thing dialed in. If we just take a look at the jet stream, current picture on the jet stream, here's where the system is right here. If I put this in motion, you watch this little impulse dive down, and let me just kind of stop it right about here. This is where it's starting to move on shore. Notice this is 1 p.m. on Sunday. That means it's going to take until Sunday afternoon for this storm even gets in our upper air network for us to really sample it. Yeah, we have some ocean buoys out here in the ocean that can sample it for a little bit, but nothing like we have in the United States with all the surface observations and the upper air observations that we can get. Probably be Sunday afternoon's models before we get a better handle on this system and can really start to lock in on the track a little bit more. So keep that in mind. It's just flat out going to take a little while. So you're going to see some heavy snow accumulations, and you can see these are up. I mean, yesterday's snow accumulations was on the order of a foot to 14, 15 inches at most. This is taking 24 inches in place. So this is ridiculously high on snow totals, and certainly more than the snow totals that it had when it suppressed it a little bit further to the south yesterday. Again, as I always say, take this with a grain of salt. What we're showing you at this point is what could happen, not necessarily what will happen. Models do not equal the environment. They are just guidance for us on what could happen. We have to use our forecasting skills to see whether it's going to happen or not. And really, it's going to have to get closer to the event before we can really hone out that track. That's just the bottom line. But, as I said, if this pans out, folks, then we're looking for a pretty big one. Let's take a look at the Canadian, because the one thing I will say is there's good agreement on all the models now that there's something big happening in the area. Let me show you that. Here we are for Tuesday at 7 p.m. on the Canadian. This takes us a little bit on the warm side, but not that much. Yeah, that rain-snow changeover line is up to the north, but actually, if you were to take a look at temperature data, we're in the very low 30s here. So it's very easily, you could see that this could be either a sleet, freezing rain, or even snow event for us by this time, sort of depending on what the temperatures are high up in the atmosphere. That's certainly something we'll have to monitor. But look at the heavy precip amounts with this one as well on the Canadian. This takes the track down into Tennessee, deepens the low pretty quickly, and moves off into eastern Kentucky. That's actually a very favorable track for snow. The blue lines are well over us now, and we have heavy precipitation. Bottom line is the Canadian absolutely buries us with snow as well. Here's what I can show you. Look very similar to the Euro. Again, some of these brighter pinks and brighter pinks and into the whites and even into some of these purpley colors. Again, that's 2 feet of snow potentially over parts of the area. Now, it's not quite as widespread with its 2 feet of snow as much as the Euro is. It's more confined, but still, it's just absolutely snow totals of epic proportions here, really. Again, snow totals that we haven't seen around here since 2004 easily. And certainly, you think the snow event that we had at the beginning of December was big. This could be even bigger, according to the Canadian. Now, there's some variance on the Canadian as well, but the Canadian is staying a little bit somewhat consistent. Here's its previous run from yesterday, from last night, and you can see it looked very similar to what the Euro looks like today. But that Canadian buried us with some ridiculously impressive snow totals as well. Backs off a little bit on those snow totals, but again, keeps that heavy, heavy accumulation over our area. Temperature-wise, with the Canadian model, it certainly would be cold enough to snow. It would start out, let me back this up here just really briefly to Tuesday afternoon. We're in the low 30s here in parts of southern Indiana, so that would indicate to me that if we have very cold weather up where it can snow, some of it might melt on the way down, or it could still be snow. We'll have to watch for that. It's just going to depend. But by the time quickly whenever we get into the snow accumulating, you notice you've fallen below freezing, and by the time the heavier stuff moves in, you're down into the low to mid-20s by that time. So certainly cold enough once the snow starts to fall for that. European model has a very similar but not quite as warm look. It only warms us up to freezing on Tuesday afternoon, so that certainly could lead to an all-snow event. We'll have to monitor that, and then by the time this heavier snow is falling on Tuesday night, again, you're down to the low to mid-20s, so certainly cold enough for snow with that as well. So let's talk about what we don't know and what we do know. Frankly, what we don't know is a whole lot more at this site. We don't know the exact tract, so that means northern Indiana can end up getting this thing. That means Tennessee could end up getting this thing, or we could end up getting this thing. So bear that in mind. What we do know, I think with a reasonable degree of certainty, is that somewhere looks to get a very heavy, heavy, heavy precipitation event. Why? Because the Gulf of moisture is pretty much going to be open for business. Whenever you have a low pressure like this, and let me just sort of put this back here, you have a low pressure like this that develops down in Texas and then starts to move up this way, you also come with it plenty of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. And when you have cold Canadian air pushing in here, well, you've got the recipe for something pretty big over us. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing, is that cold Canadian air is going to be interacting with Gulf moisture, and so you get those impressive totals. These totals could be bigger than what we had in December. Now, snow haters, don't be depressed at this point. There's plenty of time for this to change. We're a week away. We're talking the bulk of the snow falling on Tuesday night. We're a week away from it at this point. So, yes, absolutely, this could change. Snow lovers, again, take it for what it's worth. It's hope for you all, but again, this could change. We'll have to continue to monitor it over the coming days, and that's really about all we can say at it at this point. I do have fairly high confidence that there will be a big precipitation event somewhere in our area. Whether that's a heavy snow event or just a heavy rain event for us is still to be worked out. Right now, for the past 3 days, it's been a heavy snow event, which whenever you see this type of consistency, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about the type of consistency that we had with our event on December the 5th as well, that buried us under a foot of snow in some places. I'm seeing that same type of consistency, so that has my hackles sort of raised, and it gives us some cause for concern. All right, let's take a look at the 7-day forecast here real quick. I had to pull it up. My apologies. I forecasted a high of 26 today. We're up to 27. That's not too bad. I'll take it a little bit warmer. We could certainly use it. Going down to about 17 tonight with those lighter southwest winds. Clearing skies tonight. That'll be nice. A little bit warmer tomorrow, up to 37, but then a chance of a rain-snow mix on Friday before it turns more to an all-rain event, and then just plain old rain on Saturday with a high of 45 degrees. And then again, it's interesting. By the time you come into next Tuesday, right now all I'm saying is cloudy with snow likely and some accumulation possible. I'm not going to put any specific amounts. I've showed you the model data. You can take it for what you want there. Could we get 2 feet of snow? Yeah. We could get 2 inches of snow out of this too. Right now, we just don't know. I'll show you what the model data says, but at this point, this far into the future, it's just anybody's guess right now. And I show you these to help you prepare, to say, you know what, if the models consistently say this over the coming days, maybe it might be better to go to the grocery store early and get stocked up for a while rather than having to face the crowds. If you got travel plans next Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe you want to start thinking about alternatives if you can't travel. These kinds of things. Nothing to alarm us completely at this point, but something we've got to closely watch because, folks, this could be a pretty big-time event. Again, something like we haven't seen in a decade or so with the heavier snow totals. But at least we've got some warmer temperatures. For Southern Indiana Weather, I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. More videos to come on this, folks. Stay tuned.